Fionn.
And my name is Jonathan. And when you put our two names together, you get
Fionnathan!
Fionnathan. Fionnathan is a father and son
A
team,
son and father team.
a son and father team, and we are a social enterprise. We joined our two names together to serve as a kind of corporate entity. And that's quite topical for our presentation today.
Yes. Um, and 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 our talk is called Challenging the Notion of Individual Autonomy in Academia, Political Life, and Civil Society.
So,
All right.
so
Yeah.
that was a number one hit in 1952
Yes.
called Slowpoke by
By
next slide, please. By Pee Wee Herman, no, Pee Wee King
Pee Wee King.
and his
Yes.
Golden West Cowboys.
Yeah.
And of course, the message I think you might have picked up is the singer is saying, "You're always late. Why are you such a slowpoke?" And then he reaches a realization, I guess I'll have to learn to be a slowpoke too. And realizing that by shifting your perspective to meet someone else's, you gain something in camaraderie and unity.
Yes, and I think he is singing from your perspective
You
to
think?
me
Yes,
because you often tell me to hurry up.
that's right. And you often tell
Um,
me to slow down.
yes, and sometimes I walk behind you,
Yeah.
and you are way out there.
Yes, and it was only, you used to do that a lot when you were a teenager.
Yes.
And we would sometimes even miss the bus or miss the airplane.
Yeah.
And I thought, but is he doing it on purpose? Because it's when I say we have to hurry, you seem to go even slower.
Yes,
And
I
then
slow down.
one day we had the conversation and you said, yes, exactly.
I did.
I'm
I
teaching
said
you.
that. Yeah.
So, next slide, please.
Yes.
Fionnathan Productions started when you gained the first direct funding for an adult with intellectual disability in
Yes.
Ireland.
Yeah.
The Department of Health said, if we give you this money, Fionn,
Mm.
we're not prepared to give it to an individual, so you'll have to set up a company
Yeah.
so that we can just say on our books we're giving the money to a service provider,
Yeah.
a service provider for one person.
Yeah.
And you made a smart hiring choice.
Yes, I did. I decided to hire you, maybe.
Right. Yeah, you really stretched your euros there too.
I did.
Because
It's
I
true.
don't count hours. But then we said, well, if we're going to do this project fully as partners,
Yes,
it's not fair that I'm the only one being paid.
that's true.
So we looked into it and we found that the government has a support scheme for companies that hire someone with disability. And so we went to them and they said, well, I suppose you can do that. So this was another first because
Yeah,
you co-designed your job
I did.
for
Yes.
which we as a company get the funding. And I think that's never been done. And we encourage other people across Ireland to consider
Yes.
doing something like that. So
Yeah.
half of Fionn's funding comes directly from the government for
Yes.
for your not for your support budget.
Right.
All of that comes from
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
from your wages.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Exactly.
So then, but co-designing your own job,
Yeah.
that wasn't an easy thing.
Right.
It kind of started when you were a teenager years earlier, and
Yeah.
I asked you a question that fathers and mothers ask their teenage
Yeah.
children all over the world. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah.
Right? And you had multiple specific answers,
Yeah.
right? Any number of things that you said, well, maybe I'd like to do this or that.
Yeah.
And so I thought that you should interview people in the fields that you're
Yes.
interested in. And you came up with a much better question to ask them.
I did actually.
What did you ask?
What do you love about your life?
Yeah, and I had the foresight to record the conversations and we
Yeah.
ended up putting them onto a YouTube channel. And you asked hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Many of them are celebrities in many fields.
Yes.
And about 150 of the interviews that you've done are with people who have a Wikipedia page about them. So,
Yes.
as I say, multiple different kinds of people.
Yeah.
So, what's the name of the YouTube channel?
Fionnathan, Fionnathan presents the Happiness Project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we began sharing our various adventures as a form of ego boosting, as a form of activism through social media, and it also helped us to adopt the mantle of researchers. That second one is kind of remarkable because as you, Fionn, are among the one group of people in society that third level institutions where likely all of you have learned your research skills, still, for the most part, proudly exclude.
Mm.
But anyway, here we are as
Yes.
researchers.
Yeah. Um. Our our happiness research shows family is the most frequent answer people people give when 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 asked what they love. Like it or not, family completes us. Two is two is the primary um unit in a family, and relational autonomy is is the core building block of family and of community.
We talked about this last night and we realized, well, how many people does it take to make a family?
Yes.
And really, you can't have a family if it's one, I think. I think that's fair to say. Um, but you can have a family of 5 or 50, but no matter how many the number, it's like a triangle. If you have 3 people, the relationships happen in those lines. So it's always between two. Obviously, there's something special in the bigger group that happens. But when we're talking about relational autonomy,
Yeah.
two is the fundamental unit, right?
Yeah.
So your main research question
Yeah.
is how do I have a great life?
Yeah.
Which is a young person's quest, isn't it? And my main research question, no longer a young person, is how do I support him? Or how do people support people? So if we'll go to the next slide.
Yes.
We have a picture here, an image that you and I created,
Yeah.
and what we call it circles of support.
Yeah.
And will you explain it?
I'll explain the first part and then you can help.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so circles of support is a method that John O'Brien and Beth Mount uh, created and actually started in Canada.
In the 1970s,
Yeah.
right? As a method of explaining one way in which people with disability can be supported by others.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? What does that circle show?
Um,
Who's the one in the middle?
the the one with any kind of disability.
And who are all the people around the perimeter?
Um, like family members, paid supporters,
Neighbors,
neighbors,
friends.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. And how is it typically thought of? Who, what happens with these people around the outside? What do they do?
Um, they their job is to give and receive.
To give support to
Yeah,
the person
to
in the
give
middle,
support. Yeah.
to receive support from each other.
Yes. Yes.
And that person in the middle passively receives support.
Yeah.
Right? That's their job, is to receive support. And we thought that can't be a true picture.
Right.
That's not how relationships work.
Yeah.
So we realize, well, of course, no matter how significant the impairments that a person with disability might have,
Yes.
they still can be supportive of other people.
Yeah.
In fact, the more significant the impairments, oftentimes the more funding comes along with it, so the more jobs are being created. So maybe you could say the person in the middle, you know, if they have very significant impairments, might even on some levels really be supporting those people around them.
Yeah.
And what else did we notice about these people on the outside?
Um, that that they also have a wider circle of support as well.
Yeah, no one's on the outside in a healthy society. Each one of these people has a circle around them, and you can only see some of the people that are forming that circle because some are invisible, because we don't think of circles of support for people who are non-disabled. But when you see all those circles, what do you notice now about that person in the middle?
That person is also on their circle of support as well.
They're on the periphery of many circles. They're supporting many people, and that's a true picture of community. What is in sacred geometry? What did we learn? This is the 6 circles around the one circle. It has a name.
Yes, in sacred geometry, it's called the flower of life.
The flower of life.
Yeah.
So we think that's a much richer and truer picture of community.
Yeah.
And so maybe a little bit controversial. Who in this room and online with us is disabled?
All of us.
And who in this room and online is not disabled?
All of us.
Okay, can you explain that paradox?
Yes. So without the right kind of support, we all have disability. But with the right kind of support, disability disappears.
And we recognize that this perspective challenges the notion that disability is a persistent binary and not non-context specific. Surely we have more to learn, and maybe we'll change our perspective on that, or maybe you'll change your perspective and I'll stay, or vice versa. So it's just where we feel it's worth saying that actually all of us can be considered either way, and
Yes.
it really is about context
Yeah.
and about having the right kind of community with
Yeah.
us. Next slide, please. So everyone is unique.
Yes.
By operating in the world as a dyad, we multiply intersecting aspects by 2, or perhaps we raise it to the power of 2. While we each inherited gender, race, and language privileges, I share my privilege of being considered able, while you share the less recognized but punk rock privilege of being considered disabled. I wouldn't be here without you, right?
Right. Or vice versa, me without you.
Indeed. So you confer on me, in my own mind, the title of artist.
Yes.
Which I wouldn't be comfortable saying about myself without the work that we are doing. So our relationships.
Yes. So our relationship can be described as father-son, son-father, teacher-student, caregiver-care recipient, worker-boss, job creator, lead musician, musical accompaniers, um, co-creators, co-presenters, co cohabitants, and co-authors.
Next slide. Before starting our social enterprise, I was a teacher of children in the Steiner Waldorf School method for 25 years with an MA in education. One of the strengths and challenges of the Waldorf method is that teachers are expected to work out the finer details within broad strokes of the curriculum based on their own intuition and research through deep observation of the children in the class and meditative practice. Veronica was Fionn's primary caregiver in early life until his teenage years, and she continues to have a massive role in Fionn's life. Also, she led the fight with the Department of Education for appropriate supports for Fionn in the school of our choice, ultimately a successful High Court challenge. And Fionn, for his part, loves to learn about the natural world through observation and discussion, and through reading books and watching documentaries. At the age of 17, Fionn, in partnership with Jonathan, was recognized as a heritage expert by the Irish Heritage Council. You were the youngest heritage expert they'd ever put on their panel.
Yes.
And we've since visited nearly 100 schools around Ireland to teach children about wildlife.
Yes. We are global liaisons for for the Inclusive Research Network of Ireland and international ambassadors for Citizen Network. I am the I am the inaugural chair of the Inclusive Research Group for IACID.
And I assist him.
Yes.
As an emancipatory process, we wanted to help open up the world of academic research to people with intellectual disabilities. The last frontier. Next slide, please. So, collaborative research projects we have engaged in include
Good Lives.
Good Lives is the perspectives of people with disability and their families on self-directed lives with the Center of Disability Law and Policy.
Digi Academy.
That's a series of modules to train people with intellectual disability to develop internet capabilities with multiple partners across the EU, led by Trinity College. And a PhD project exploring
Attitudes of people with intellectual disabilities towards death and late life decisions.
and the creation of
The guidelines for inclusive research by the National Disability Authority of Ireland.
next slide, please. We would have happily gone along in our apolitical life had not we been invited into the campaign for a Down Syndrome Act UK. Over 2 years, we worked with politicians, civil servants, health, education, and legal professionals, and a team of more than a dozen Down syndrome dyads like ours. So sometimes those were people with Down syndrome who were adults, but more often children. So they weren't involved in all the meetings, but the adults, the parents that were there, or the siblings that were there without Down syndrome, were really there because of, and in a sense along with their close partner.
Yes.
So with amazing good fortune, the Down Syndrome Act became one of the final laws assented to by the Queen of England.
Yes.
The advisory group, you are the chair of
I
the
am.
advisory group. It's about 40 people with Down syndrome across the UK.
Yeah.
Continues to work to make sure the act is effective and the process is inclusive.
Yes.
And a couple of weeks you'll be going back to Parliament to talk to whom about what?
To talk to the all-party parliamentary group on Down syndrome.
And what are you asking them to do?
To help with a campaign project that we have in mind.
To support a national campaign so
Yeah.
that more people, all the people who need to know about the Down Syndrome Act,
Yeah.
professionals, medical professionals, education professionals,
Yeah.
are aware of their new responsibilities.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Obviously, there's a tendency toward an imbalance of power in our relationship and in all dyads where one has intellectual disability and one does not. And there's the generational thing in both senses of the word. We try often to have Fionn act as the first among equals guiding the agenda, the itinerary, the priorities list. Power imbalances remain, but they create a creative tension.
Yeah. When 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 we are at home and and have loud arguments, I sometimes remind him that he is only there as my employee without without any rights to 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 tenancy, as the lease is in my name alone.
Yeah, in other words, you threatened to kick me out when you're really angry with me.
Oh yeah.
And you do have that power because
Yes,
it's your apartment,
I
right?
do.
Ireland is slowly coming to grips with people's right to act in relational autonomy, recognizing that that making choices is a human right, and choosing with support is one form of making choices. Just recently, the 1881 Lunacy Act was put to rest. It said that feeble-minded people with agency were dangerous, and so they were made wards of court for their own protection. This restricted them from owning property, from serving on juries, from entering contract, or even having sexual relations outside of marriage. That's you.
Yeah. The 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 Decision Making Capacity Act 2015 was implemented just 5 months ago. I was I was on the stakeholders group, uh, and 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 one of the the 9 champions featured in in the the national ad campaign. Here I am posing with the Prime Minister and 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 3 other cabinet ministers.
And during a break in the photographs, Fionn said to the Prime Minister, I have a personal budget, but it's far too low.
Yeah,
And he said, oh, how much do you get? Right to the point. You
yeah,
told him, and he said,
I
oh,
did.
that is too low. Let's talk with this other minister here about
Yes.
getting you a better budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then she said, Secretary, good of good of you work something out
Make an appointment. Let's
and
talk
make an
about it.
appointment. Yeah.
Okay. And next slide. So last slide before the end. We challenge the cult of independence.
Yeah.
The author, the auteur, the maestro, the self-made man. It's predominantly a masculine notion. Reaganite capitalism has a certain individualistic bent at the expense of the collective, while a relational autonomy approach acknowledges the central role of others in decision making. We argue that the principle of respect for autonomy needs to be reconceptualized, starting from a relational viewpoint.
Independence is is an important tool to build a great life, but interdependence requires give and take, sacrificing some freedom in exchange for belonging. It's rarely it's rarely acknowledged that freedom from choice is as much needed in the modern world as freedom of choice.
So pushing it back against places in the world where only solos are allowed includes
Tickets to attend events.
so many theaters and cinemas and places will acknowledge that a person with disability who needs an assistant shouldn't have to pay for 2 tickets. If the assistant doesn't, is just assisting, isn't there because they want to attend the event. Or even if they are, it shouldn't matter whether the assistant enjoys the event or not. That you should be able to buy 1 ticket and
Yeah.
be given 2 places.
Yes.
Canada, I believe, is the first country to recognize that in terms of flights. So all flights originating and ending within Canada, you get 2 tickets if you need to, purchasing only one. So hopefully that will be worldwide in the near future.
Yes. Mobile phone and personal computers.
It's very difficult to set up a phone for 2 people. You can't. I mean, you can change from one to the other, but 2 people can't use it as one. And that's true sort of in governmental realm where well, we've voted together before. We decided on one ballot what we both would do. That's probably breaking the rules.
Yeah.
But society in many ways wants you to be just one person. Also in
bank accounts and savings.
Yeah, hard. Now we've found an option where we formed a company and we both have access to those. We mentioned voting.
Yes.
And the last one.
Researching a PhD.
Yes, as we declared just a few short months ago upstairs in this building.
Yep.
We think it should be something that people can do. That is to jointly work on one PhD project and receive one doctorate together. Last slide. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.